So I'm being reintroduced to the wonderful world of Thorgis Arcade. This person makes really cool videos about retrospectives and also just like um, what characters would be better on a fighting game? Question mark. I've seen I've seen a variety of his clips and stuff like that, but primarily only seen one of his videos about Marvel vs. Capcom. But today I want to check out the cutting and rebuilding Smash Bros. Build a roster because I am very passionate about Smash Bros. As being the neighborhood Nintendo fanatic. So yeah, hi YouTube, how's it going? Let's start this in.
Before we get started with this very special build the roster, we've got an extra spooky follow-up to our last episode. In the Halloween episode, I told you that we were partnering with Terabytes, a brand new documentary about the history of horror video games. This love letter to those games that keep you up at night and haunt your dreams is being made by the passionate creators behind such documentaries as In Search of Darkness, easily the best salute to 80s horror films ever, and FPS, an incredible in-depth exploration of the first-person shooter genre.
It's
well, thanks
birthday,
to all of you filling
today.
out those surveys in the last episode, I'm pleased to announce that Terabytes is now
today
deep in development, with an expected release date of early next year. This will be a multi-part series with each video tackling a different topic, and the list of guests that they have lined up is incredible. So first off, thank you to everyone out there who filled out the surveys in the last episode. You guys helped these filmmakers push this project ahead, and I am pleased to announce that we are once again partnering up with Terabytes for this film's release. If you follow our affiliate link in the description down below, then you can pre-order a copy of Terabytes right now, and by doing that, not only will you be helping out this channel since we'll get a little bonus off of it, but also you'll get your name in the credits, access to behind-the-scenes making-of features all year round, as well as a bonus digital copy of FPS, their first-person shooter documentary, so you're getting two films in one for this offer. And if you want to go above and beyond all that, if you pledge to the higher tiers, then there's tons of...
This is a Kickstarter? I heard the word pledge and I'm having PTSD.
Other special bonuses you can get. You only have until March 3rd to get your pre-order in though, so remember, if you want to be first in line for this new documentary, all while helping this channel out, then use the affiliate link in the description down below. Thanks again to Terabytes for reaching out to me. I have said it before, but I will say it again. This is not me just reading off an ad simply because I'm being hired to do so. No, I am a legit big fan of these guys, so this is a big honor for me. And a huge thank you to everyone who has been supporting this film so far. Now, let's dive into today's special episode of Build the Roster.
Ooh, Dino Crisis in the corner.
For the greatest tonal shift in this channel's history. Hello, fighting.
Speaking of greatest shift, a lot of content creators back in the day build their entire branding on Smash Bros. It's incredible how people can take a franchise and just make a fucking livelihood out of it. It's insane. That reminds me of Alpharat.
Game fans, and welcome to a new episode of Build the Roster. Now, we've got a tradition on this channel, where the first episode of Build the Roster each year is always dedicated to making a new Smash-like, some new platform fighter crossing over multiple properties under one banner. We've done for indie games, we've done for Sega, we've done for Xbox, which at the time of this recording might become very poorly aged very soon, but when thinking of what our new Smash-like should be for this year, it
Sonic community as well? Oh yeah.
We've done Smash
they have built
games,
livelihoods,
but we've never actually done Smash itself. Yes, Super Smash Bros., the king of crossover games, the game that put platform fighters on the map, and the game that ushers in each generation of new Nintendo hardware. When a brand new console hits the market, everyone is waiting for that brand new Smash game. Well, this year, with rumors stirring of a brand new Nintendo,
I cannot wait for the next Smash Bros. Game. I know it's not gonna meet the standards of Smash Bros. Ultimate. They already said that there may possibly never be a Smash Bros. Like that one. That roster was insane. It's huge. And even so, I still feel like a little bit could have been done a little more. But if you ask me, like, then what is it, SAIN? My brain really cannot register because I freaking feel like I need to do my own analysis of like what I would add to Smash Bros. That feels like it would be fitting for Smash Bros. Speaking about unfitting, Minecraft. I don't hate Minecraft. I said this in the Sonic Crossworld video. I do not hate Minecraft. Minecraft is a freaking amazing game. It just, I wish it was just better. I genuinely wish it was just something a little bit more creative. Other than representing the biggest franchise in the world, I feel like something a bit more interesting then Minecraft would have been slightly better. I'm speaking in the behalf of like no one. I'm speaking about myself on that opinion, and I'm also saying that because it is what I believe is objectively better for like Smash Bros and Sonic Cross World.
Console on the way, and not like the previous 3 years of rumors. No, this time those rumors are serious. It could actually maybe sort of happen this year, and if not this year, then totally the next year. My point is, with the Switch 2 probably coming sometime soon, what better time to finally build the roster for the next installment of Super Smash Bros. So join me today as I answer the question, how would we make a brand new Smash Bros? And how could we make it even better? We can't.
The end. How the dog. I thought that was part of the video. That was on Tangia, and it was so extremely fitting. Right there on the ending screen, the duck hunt dog just appeared. Chanta would have had the spot, definitely. They would make it a $90 game. I don't care if they make the next Smash Bros. A $200 game. Because essentially, Smash Bros. Ultimate, if you want the full experience with all the characters, you need to buy all the battle passes. And that's already over $100. I just want a genuinely amazing game, by the way. Oh, I felt that. Perfect timing. It's impeccable timing. Honestly, he's right. You think so? I gotta debate some of you in the chat.
And that's it. That's the answer. You can't make a better Smash Bros. Roster. Are you insane? Smash Ultimate was the peak of fighting game rosters. There will never be a better fighting game roster than this game. What Sakurai and everyone on Smash pulled off.
Immediately, I saw Incineroar. Incineroar is cool, but that was just a promotion of what was trending at the moment. Pokemon Sun and Moon. And I feel like they could do a little better. Like they could add a Pokemon that would be a little better.
Is monumental and will live on as a legend
like
that no one will ever be able to match again, not even the next Smash Bros. So, yeah, instead I decided to just get weird with it on this episode. Enjoy!
That's me every time. Oh, hell yeah! Cool, badass intro.
Welcome to Build the Roster, the show where we take a hypothetical fighting game and build our dream roster around it. Although today, yeah, that isn't entirely the case. Yes, today we're going to be taking on the legendary Smash Bros. And building the roster for the next installment in the franchise.
Honestly, look, after I saw that cutscene, I don't even know who was expecting. I wasn't expecting some of the DLC characters. I was surprised that Sephiroth made it in there because Cloud is already in the damn game. Might as well put Tifa and other, you know what? Other Final Fantasies could have been represented, but that's okay. Maybe they could have put like a little chocobo in there. I feel like also people wouldn't even be upset if they added like DLC that is assist trophies and stuff like that. I kind of wanted to see like just some of those characters be represented in some way. My favorite Ken remix. It is good. This makes some of the assist trophies playable. Bomberman got done so dirty. Bomberman got done extremely dirty. It's one of the most iconic video game franchise of all time. And from back in the day that built the Nintendo, you know, and I guess, didn't I hear a rumor that apparently the moveset for Bomberman wasn't as creative, so they didn't make him a character? That was just a rumor. I don't know if it's like, it was just word on the streets. I was a little upset over that because Bomberman has so much lore. So much could be done, honestly. In fact, you can just smashify his move because if you think about it, a lot of moves from like the OG crew of Smash Bros, like Mario and Donkey Kong. Well, Donkey Kong maybe not. It's a good example. But yeah, like Luigi and some Nintendo characters, some of their moves may have some slight references of things they do, but for the most, it's just like original moves from Smash Bros. It's just smashified. When does Mario do like a Hadouken style, like forward smash? It is smashified. Captain Falcon literally had nothing. That's so freaking true. If anything, I feel like Captain Falcon inspire other like franchise to do more. Captain Falcon from Smash inspire other counter from F-Zero. Just so he had a just so he can have an up air. I want to remind people that Sakurai created a whole new move for Terry, just so he can have an up air. Are you telling me that Terry doesn't have like a Shoryuken style move? Yeah, no, it's matchifying. You could definitely be more creative with that. Falcon has been in more Smash Bros. Games than F-Zero games at this point. Ooh, that is also a hard take. It's true.
Say this is a show all about making our dream rosters for a hypothetical game, but the roster for Smash Ultimate was just that. The ultimate Smash roster. I'm not saying there weren't any names missing. I'm not saying it wouldn't be cool to see other characters get added.
Damn, this photo is so fucking good. It takes me back. I want a poster like this. Genuinely. Look at that Sora, how cute. What the hell? This art is peak.
I'm saying if you want to
like
make
a wet
this
dream for me.
roster better, a new game isn't going to do that. There will never be a base roster as good as this game again. If you want to make this roster better, a simple season of DLC is really the only way to do it. But here's the thing about Build the Roster. This show isn't just listing off a bunch of characters that we would like to see in a fighting game. No, it's also something of a thought experiment. It's a challenge to come up with a roster under a set list of rules.
What would you put in Smash Bros. At this point?
I always spend the first 10 minutes at the top of every episode sounding like an IRS agent going over W4 forms. I like to set up challenges for each episode, and normally it's nothing too complicated. But when it comes to Smash, a franchise that prides itself on anyone and everyone being a possible candidate for the game, I had to give myself a challenge. So here's our goal for today's episode. Smash Ultimate ended its development with 86 characters.
Cappy's an emote in the game.
Unless you count Pokemon Trainer and Pyra and Mithra as multiple characters, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Point is, the game ended with one of the biggest rosters of all time. So what would happen if that roster couldn't get any bigger? Yeah, let's say that Sakurai has decided to go out on top. He says there's no way he can make a better game than Smash Ultimate, so he's retiring from the franchise, and now Nintendo turns to us, random YouTube guy, and says it's up to you to make the new roster. But here's the thing. It's impossible for us to fit any more characters into this game. This roster right here, that's as many characters as we can fit on screen.
Now, you know what? I feel thinking. Somebody mentioned we should put more villains. And somebody mentioned as well, combining that sentence with the following. Some franchises deserve more than 2 characters, like Zelda and Metroid. I mean, Zelda, what does Zelda have for characters? A young Link, a Toon Link, an adult Link. And then it has Zelda and Ganondorf. Am I forgetting somebody else? I don't think so. I always wanted Vati, but Vati is such a niche character for my one game thing. Vati would have been cute, but Vati almost kind of looks like Link. But Vati would have had such a unique moveset representing a lot of bosses from Zelda. You know, it would have represented all those bosses combined. Something like that would have been cool. I wanted Marks. I genuinely wanted Marks, but Marks is a perfect boss for what it was. And also the moveset would have been a little bit awkward. But then they said the same thing about Ridley, which is insane. I don't know. Skull Kid would have been added, but Skull Kid, what does Skull Kid do aside from like just prank and curse? Curse the moon! I'm gonna piss on the moon!
Higher. But we also need the game to feel brand new. So your job is to cut half of this roster off and then replace it with brand new fighters. Good luck! Yes, that's our challenge for today. We aren't just going to build the roster. We're going to tear the roster down, then rebuild it. We have to get rid of half the roster of Smash Bros. And then come up with brand new characters to fill in all those spots. But there are a few more rules to make this even more complicated. Challenging. For starters, yes, there are...
I'm gonna sound extremely stupid with this, or some people are gonna wonder why the hell I'm saying this, because I mentioned before that one of my mains is Lucina. I would remove Lucina. But before Lucina, I would remove Chrom. Chrom was the most awkward pick of all time. Lucina already exists. They really wanted to like double down on like appreciating Fire Emblem.
86 characters on this roster. But I'm going to merge all the Mii
I'll make them
fighters
customs
into
for Mark
one spot
and Roy.
because what am I going to do? Get rid of one Mii fighter but keep the other two? Sorry, Mii sword fighter, but everyone says there's too many sword fighters in this game, so clearly they're talking about you. No, with the Mii fighters, either they're all in or none of them are. Also, I know someone is going to say that Pyra and Mithra should count as 2 characters, or Pokemon Trainer should count as 3, but again, I'm going to count each of them as 1 character because I'm not going to kick out Pyra and just leave Mithra. I'm not going to kick out Squirtle and now Pokemon Trainer can only use Ivysaur and Charizard. No, these are characters who they're either all in or it's nothing, so there's no point in dividing them up. So Pyra and Mithra, the Pokemon Trainer, and the 3 Mii fighters are all going to count as just 3 spots, leaving us with 84 characters, meaning I will need to cut out 42. But here's the other big rule. I know that most people have their Dream Smash roster and like 80% of them are all guest characters, but that is way too easy. At that point, this show just becomes me listing off characters I think are cool. So here's the rule. For every Nintendo character
like,
I
remove, please.
I have to add another Nintendo character in their place. And just to clarify, when I say Nintendo character,
this
I don't
video is so
necessarily
fucking
mean
cool.
a character that was made by Nintendo. I'm also counting characters who are exclusive to Nintendo consoles. For example, Sonic and Bayonetta are both made by Sega, but Sonic is on every console, Bayonetta is only on Nintendo consoles. So for this video, Sonic would be counted as a guest character, Bayonetta would be counted as a Nintendo character. And the same thing is going to be true for the Echo Fighters. I actually had multiple people suggest to me that I shouldn't even count the Echo Fighters in here because seeing as how they use the moveset of existing characters, they're easy inclusion, so it wouldn't really make sense to cut them. So I should only worry about cutting the fully original characters. And I can understand their point, but I also understand that's the coward's way of doing this. No, nobody is safe in this. The Echo Fighters are on the chopping.
I would make Daisy more unique, please. But don't do her dirty next time. And also, give me 10 cowards. Give me 10 skin Daisy.
Block 2. However, just like with the Nintendo characters, if I cut an Echo Fighter, I have to replace it with another Echo Fighter. So no just cutting all the Echo Fighters for a quick easy spot. Also, a couple of years ago when we did our Sega Smash roster, I had a similar rule about replacing Echo Fighters with other Echo Fighters. And in that video, I said I disagree with Nintendo on what does and does not count as an Echo Fighter. But for this video, to try and simplify things, I am going to just use Nintendo's official ruling on who is and isn't an Echo Fighter. So okay, to recap, we have to get rid of 42 characters, then replace them, and we have to replace all the Nintendo characters with other Nintendo characters, guest characters with other guest characters, and Echo Fighters with other Echo Fighters. Everybody understand? Great! Everybody ready to get really upset as I remove your mains from the game and cast them into the Shadow Realm? Not so great. So
I like
let's
these
go ahead and
I
rip
kind
that
of react to them
off as we begin to de-build the roster. That felt
this man
weird
got
to
dirty.
say. This is unnatural. I don't like any of this. Okay, going to go through these rapid fire, and I'm going to divide these characters up by franchises to try and justify some of my choices. And remember, just because a character gets cut isn't me saying they're a bad.
By Hero, I'm going to ban you. You shut your mouth. I love Hero from Dragon Quest. No, that's like the perfect guest. It is literally one of the most iconic. Hell, combine anime and gaming in history and their inclusion. Yes, I would remove probably the random element bullshit, but on his fighting style. But he's such a cool part of history. And the art style of Akira Toriyama. Sorry for the video. I needed to pause because somebody triggered me. The easy thing to cut is all the third-party characters. Disney probably won't allow Sora and Smash ever again. Probably. They're boring aside from the random move. They could make the moves a little bit more unique. But then again, it is a JRPG character, like, from such an era. They barely had, like, creative moves. But you can smashify them, you know? You can smashify them.
Choice. Just that when we have to get rid of half the roster, there are various reasons why I could understand them being cut. Starting off with the Mario franchise, some pretty easy ones here. Mario, have to keep him. Luigi, obvious choice. Peach, keep. Bowser, Wario, keep. Yoshi, Yeah, I know he's a beloved part of the franchise. I know he even has his own franchise, and he's been here from the start.
This man is
But
huffing
there's
smoke
a lot
already.
of Mario characters and a lot more we could add. And the Yoshi games aren't as popular as they used to be. Yoshi can be cut from the roster and just be turned into an assist trophy. I mean, that's basically what he is in the Mario.
Nah, bro. This is bait. This is. I need to have an alarm. An alarm. This is rage bait. This is debate. This isn't even a debate. This man has been in the front runner from like some of the. Nah. I'm not even gonna talk about the history of Yoshi here. Everybody fucking knows what Yoshi is and how unique he is to Smash Bros. He actually like breaks the mold from like the standard character that doesn't have a second double jump. And he's supposed to have like that one easy mode. Yoshi has always been like babyfied like gameplay for a lot of players, which is why he has like a super armor and all that stuff. You're huffing smoke. I'm gonna let him cook, but this already is looking terrible.
Games after all, he's an assist. It would make sense. Then Dr. Mario, yeah, that's a super obvious cut. Bowser Jr., it was cool that they had him in there. It's cool that they also used all of his alternate skins to be the other Koopa kids, but he doesn't have to be in here.
No, he has to be. I feel like Baby Bowser has been such a, and the way they did him in this game, oh, beautiful. All the Koopalings are represented in one single, like, in the Koopalings is such an iconic part of Nintendo history at this point. This is rage bait. This is, I know the man's trying to cut corners, but Yoshi, come on.
Here's one that will hurt a lot of people. Rosalina. She's super popular and has the Mario Galaxy games behind her, and they're some of the most critically praised Mario games in history. But those games were a long time ago, and
she's not, oh my god. She's like the most unique princess. You're gonna tell me you're gonna cut, this is bait, this is rage bait.
we haven't really done a lot with her since. If there's ever a third Mario Galaxy game, she can come back, but for now, she's cut. And lastly, the first Echo cut, Daisy. I love Daisy, I think she is a super fun character, but we don't need two Peaches. And considering that Peach is about to get her own game and she's going to have all these different costumes and powers that she can swap between, I would say that in the next Smash Bros, we should change Peach around so that way she plays like she will in her new game. And at that point, Daisy wouldn't even make sense as an Echo fighter. Actually, if I'm completely spitballing here, you know what I would love to see?
As cute as that sound, because you're representing the new games, like gameplay style, we love to see that. We love to see like the new gameplay being acknowledged at least. However, Princess Peach's moves in this game are all brand new, Smashified since Melee. You cannot do that. I feel like Peach should remain untouched. She should have the booty attack, the turnips. That makes Peach so incredibly unique, and it's been one of the most beloved characters. No, I feel like if someone tries to like reference too much, no, I feel like Peach is perfectly fine as she is, as it is. Also, by the way, thank you for the follow. Wouldn't we keep Peach with the new stuff and keep Daisy with the old moves? Maybe, but at the same time, like I said before, Peach is it's how it started, so she should keep those moves. If anything, Daisy should be the one representing a lot of other different moves. That's how I feel, because she needs to be separate and completely different, because she's an entirely independent woman aside from Peach, by the way. She's not just an extension, a clone, a twin, or nothing like that. She should have had her own unique movesets. From where? I don't know. I don't care. Smashify them. Give her, I don't know, like just the Waluigi treatment. Reference sport games. Reference the desert where she lives in. Reference the Moai thingies. I don't know. Make her like scream, and then a bunch of little aliens come and shoot little lasers, because apparently that's what kidnapped Princess Daisy in the first game. Give her a little airplane boost from like the airplane reference in Super Mario Land at the end level. Give her a little Lucky to Cloud so she can, like, I don't know, toss around and push enemies off the cliff. Give her a little cactus that would just like, she can kick like the villagers like plants. Anything. She has an infinite amount of like references you can do from her game or from where she lives from. She can be such a unique character. Peach is Peach. Peach has been, she's got the blood of Smash Bros. Smashified. That's just my own personal opinion. Digs out failed Nintendo consoles and characters and throws them in instead of vegetables. Failed Nintendo. That's such a troll move. Also, hello Gundam. How's it going?
See them do, Daisy? Have her be the representative for the Mario sports games.
Yeah, there we go.
She's known for being a tomboy, and she pretty much only pops up in the sports game, so I would love to see her come back as a unique character who uses all sports-themed attack, like swinging golf clubs and tennis rackets and doing her Mario Striker's Kick as her big final smash. But then we're getting into a weird territory of, does changing an Echo Fighter to a full character count as cutting them and adding a new
Make her
character,
unique. Make her
or does
unique.
it count as keeping an old
She's
character?
important.
And yeah, I'm not getting into that argument. So sadly, she's going to be cut. And lastly, Piranha Plant. It's cute that a regular Mario villain got put into this game as a fighter. It's very charming.
Oh,
But real
SAIN.
talk, I am adding this into the script right now after I finish writing the rest of it, because I completely forgot to mention Piranha Plant the first time I went through this, and I think that's all I need to say about why they're getting cut. Next, the legend.
See, Piranha Plant is an example of like referencing your sources. Piranha Plant is more unique than Daisy if we talk about on the reality of things, because it's a unique character. However, I feel like Piranha Plant maybe can get cut. Maybe it's kind of a unique character, but I don't know. I'm still debating on Piranha Plant. A lot of other enemies could have had a spotlight. If we put, see, here's the thing: if we put enemies like Piranha Plant, I feel like other enemies from Mario possibly could have been also included, like some of the Paper Mario enemies, because Paper Mario has a lot of games. But Nintendo kind of doesn't like Paper Mario at the end of the day. Let's be honest. I feel like Piranha Plant is way more iconic. A Goomba could have been more iconic.
The Zelda characters, super obvious picks here. Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf, the Triforce wielders themselves, all have to stay.
Yeah, is this a Nintendo Smash or Pass? Yes, it is. And this motherfucker in the screen is like smashing the ones on the left side and passing the ones on the right.
But Sheik, she can go. She's from one of the most legendary games of all time, but she hasn't been in anything since then. And she's also just a disguise for Zelda. Zelda is already in the game right there. We don't need Sheik. And as for Toon Link and
this is a rage bait.
Young Link, listen, I'm glad that Wind Waker got some rep in here, but it's been a long time since we visited the world of Wind Waker. And Young Link, do I even need to explain why this is a cut? But here's some big questions.
Both of them?
The Pokemon.
No. Toon Link is so unique. Toon Link is actually kind of unique. Like all the little gimmicks that Toon Link has, extremely unique. You called it. This is bait. This is bait. Too many links? No.
On characters. Pikachu, no duh, has to be in there. Pokemon Trainer, I think this is one of the smartest ways to represent the Pokemon franchise, and they have a great gimmick. Gotta keep them in there. Mewtwo, one of the most iconic Pokemon of all time, easy keep. But as for the cuts, Jigglypuff, get the heck out of there. You were only in here because you could copy some of Kirby's moves for an easy character in the original game, and because you used to be big in the cartoon, but that was like 3 decades ago. You ain't that big anymore. Cut. Pichu, you were only in here to promote Gold and Silver. No one has thought of you since then. Cut. Now, these next few choices were
It's not the first time
tougher.
Pichu gets cut.
Incineroar, I really dug them in the last game, but he was here to be the face of the newer Pokemon, and he's not that new anymore. I think we can cut him. Then Greninja, another Pokemon who was thrown in here to represent Pokemon who were popular when that particular Smash game came out. But here's the thing. Greninja has remained crazy popular over the years. In fact, for Pokemon's 25th anniversary just a few years ago, he was voted the most popular Pokemon, which still surprises me so much I have to double check it every time I bring it up. I have never heard anyone talk about him, but I guess I'm just running in the wrong
Greninja. I'm biased.
But if he's the #1 most popular Pokemon in the world, yeah, we should probably keep him. Which sadly means I now have to make the toughest cut so far. I love Lucario. Everyone loves Lucario. Who doesn't like Lucario? But we got a lot of Pokemon in here, and we got a lot more that we could add. I think it's great that Lucario got into this series and that he stuck around as long as he did.
The furries.
But I think after 3 games, it's okay for him to sit this one out.
I love Lucario though.
Next up, the Metroid game.
I do feel like Lucario has a bit of Lucario's moveset is kind of represented in between Mewtwo and Greninja. I feel like at least for the core.
She's an obvious keep, but here's a shocker. Dark Samus. I say keep. We need to keep at least a few of the older Echo Fighters. We can't just scrap every single Echo Fighter to make this easy. We got to keep at least
make
some
it a little
of them
different
in here.
here.
And Dark Samus is changed up enough to make them feel
I'm not
really
against
interesting
Echo
to play
Fighters,
as.
but
And she's a good representation of the Metroid
I feel like, you know, if it's
gonna
gonna represent my entire like spot, I feel like Echo Fighters could just, they did make a toggle so they could be in spot on top of it, but I don't know if it qualifies as a new spot. It's a weird angle that I don't know how to describe. Me to SAIN while Lucario gets cut. Ironic since that's what happened in Melee, the brawl. Yeah, so true. Also, hi Renata.
So I say we keep her. However, that is all the versions of Samus that we are going to keep because Zero Suit Samus goes right in the cuts. And lastly, Ridley. We fought for years to get Ridley in this game. I'm not cutting them out now that they're finally here. Keep. All right, going to move through these a little bit quicker. Star Fox, I'm keeping. I'm getting rid of Falco and Wolf. Sorry, but they play way too similar to him. And as much as I hate saying it, Star Fox ain't what it used to be. We can keep the face of the series, but that's about all the weight it's got at this point. And also, just to remind everyone, while I consider Falco and Wolf to be Echo Fighters, Nintendo does not. Then Donkey Kong, we have to keep DK himself, but as for Diddy... Oh, this one hurts because I know people love Diddy. I know there are people screaming right now to cut Donkey and keep Diddy because people like him that much. But again, we're getting rid of 42 characters. Tough cuts have to be made, and Diddy just barely doesn't make it. I'm sorry, everybody.
Nah,
and
this is bait.
Sadly, I gotta cut K. Rool too. I lost my mind when K. Rool got announced for Ultimate. I've been asking for him in this game for years, and I loved being able to...
You're removing one of the most key villains of all time. I feel like K. Rool deserved the spot and deserved to stay. He's not Bowser. He's not a clone to Bowser. He plays so differently. If that's your mega point in here, you make a genius. And also, Diddy is so freaking unique, and also Diddy's got quite a few games under his sleeve that are unique to him. Diddy's important.
Finally play as him. But yeah, he's the villain
I will keep
from
Diddy
the
and
Country games, and the Donkey Kong Country games were a long time ago. We can cut him. Then we come to Kirby, and shockingly enough, there's only 3 Kirby characters in this game.
Here's the thing about Smash Bros. Like keeps and cuts and people's opinions. No one is ever going to be happy with your selections. Even with my selections, people would be like upset about it. From this cut list, I understand what he's trying to do. I would put like Dr. Mario as a custom, even though he has like some slightly different hitboxes. But if you really want to cut corners and like get some points in there, I wouldn't cut half of the people that he mentioned in here. And even though he cut Zero Suit Samus, what the fuck? Zero Suit Samus is so unique. In Brawl, the gimmick was like Samus uses the final smash and transforms into Zero Suit Samus, which was a fun experience at the time. But these days, I feel like Zero Suit Samus is so freaking unique, and it plays much faster. And it's kind of it's not kind of, it is his own unique character, but it's like it's Samus but over and over again. I guess he's trying to cut multiple characters being in there. I feel like I should keep one of the tiny links, please. I say honestly between the two, if you're gonna put a gun in my head, I say Toon Link stays. Young Link, it's pretty much represented in Adult Link already.
Game, and you know what? I say we keep each of them. Kirby is huge, gets brand new games constantly, and I'd say DDD and Meta Knight are both important enough to keep around. And I'll say the same for our 2 Animal Crossing characters. Animal Crossing is huge for Nintendo, and so...
See, now you're huffing smoke. I feel like Isabelle is adorable. Don't get me wrong. I would put her like an alternative skin. They essentially have almost the same moveset, and they could both pull off the same stunts if you like mix them up a little bit. Isabelle, I feel like Isabelle deserves to stay represented some way, but inside of like villagers, like Arsenal.
We got two characters in here. One is your in-game avatar, and the other is one of the most popular characters in recent Nintendo history. So, I say they both stay. Then, oh man, you ready for some hot takes?
Sakurai bias.
The Fire Emblem characters. Everyone always says there's
you want me to make my own roster? That's a good homework.
Characters, and I love Fire Emblem. It's been one of my favorite Nintendo franchises since Awakening
Even
over
as the
10
big
years
Fire
ago.
Emblem fan, I understand a lot of these cuts.
Yeah, everyone is right. There's way too many Fire Emblem characters. So let's keep Marth since he's the OG Fire Emblem guy. But then after that, I say we cut every single other Fire Emblem character except for one. Roy, Ike, Lucina, Corrin, yeah, especially Corrin, Robin, and Violet, all of them can go. But I say we keep Chrom, because he—
Bro! Why Ike? Ike is one of the most unique ones out of all of these. Violet is pretty interesting because I like Violet a lot. I'm very biased. This is one of my favorite franchises in here. My entire identity and brand as a VTuber started almost because of Fire Emblem. I was almost a Fire Emblem content creator, but I made a strong pivot. However, I'm gonna let him cook and then I'm gonna
from
talk.
the Awakening games, and that game re-energized Fire Emblem, and even according to its developers, ended up saving the entire franchise. It feels like it would be important to keep a character from in there. But also, Chrom is an Echo Fighter who uses moves from both Ike and Roy. So my logic is that by keeping him, we're keeping the movesets of two different characters alive. I know you might be asking right now, if we got rid of the two characters that he was based on, does that still mean that Chrom is an Echo Fighter in this game? You know what, let's not think about that too much. Otherwise, I'll have to dwell on the fact that I just cut—
Nah, bro, Ike, you have to remove Chrom, keep Ike. If you want to remove, like, Roy was already removed at some point, I think. And then, I understand Corrin is very unique in the fighting style, and same as Violet, but they were just promotional at the time. And Robin, if any character from Awakening needs to be represented in this game, it's either Lucina or Robin. And Robin is so unique. Even though Robin's playstyle is a little bit plain in my own personal opinion, I feel like Lucina could be represented inside of like Marth's, like, just alternative. And maybe Robin can stay. I don't know. I need to debate that. I need to go to the drawing board with this, but there need to be at least like, let's see, 1, 2. I'll make my own judgment about this.
Okay,
about
we're
this
more
later.
than halfway through now, so let's keep
I
pushing
need to
ahead.
think really strong about that.
Earthbound/Mother franchise. There's two characters. We only need one. Let's keep Ness since he's from the original game, and also Lucas's game is still only available in Japan. Pit and Palutena.
Bro.
Oh, it would be real easy to cut both of them because the old Kid Icarus games weren't a huge staple for Nintendo.
Hold on. There. I did my part. I did. I did. Already, but yeah, I'm not sure if this the end of the sentence will say, it would be really, it would be great to cut them both. But you'll definitely, you're playing, nah.
Oh, and it's been a long time since that 3DS game, but goddamn, that 3DS game was good. And Pit and Palutena and the whole Kid Icarus gang are low with so much personality, and those dialogue sequences on stage are great. So let's keep Pit, but cut.
Chat, is it valid for me to have a breakdown moment on stream? Even contemplating the idea, this isn't even about removing them. It's the fact that you're even debating the thought process of removing both Pit and Palutena. I think he's keeping them both, but even like, this is gonna be my breakdown. This is gonna, oh my god, I'm actually sweating. My blood pressure is like through the roof.
Palutena. Wait, hold up. Dark Pit was in this game too. Oh man. Yeah, this is not a joke. I also forgot about Dark Pit. Yeah, sorry Dark Pit, you're cut. Then the Xenoblade representatives. We got two. Shulk and Pyra/Mithra. I feel like we have—
He removed Palutena. the waifu. Like one of the most peak waifus when Palutena. Oh my god, Palutena revived a part of the internet that was incredible, and and that's such a unique moveset as well. No, bro, this man's tweaking. I'm about to. I'm gonna have my breakdown episode here. Also, Xenoblade. Oh, this is gonna be
cut one of them, and since Shulk is the OG pro tag, he gets that extra point, so he gets to stay. And you know what? Feels like a good time to finally address the Mii fighters.
Okay, he removed Pyra Mithra. I'm on the fence because Pyra Mithra was an extremely. It's literally my main, by the way. Literally my new current main on the game. I am. How can I say this? I feel like they got the Smashify treatment because now that it's two swords holding the swords instead of the guy. They got a special treatment to be in there, and I feel like they also have a giant contrast between all these cartoon characters that are. Look at the left side of the screen. Like the most anime you can get in here is probably like the Fire Emblem characters and Pit, and the Xenoblade. Those one, and I feel like we need more of that. I feel like Pyra Mithra is kind of important. Not saying that I need some sexy characters by default, but I feel like there's too many reasons of why to keep Pyra Mithra. Also, they play. I want to say they play kind of unique. They're kind of OP, by the way. I feel like they are a little bit overpowered, but not enough. I feel like there's other characters that are way overpowered. We're not doing a balancing thing in here. I feel like maybe I don't know. It just needs to be reevaluated.
In the room, I say keep them because it is fun to be able to customize your characters, but also this is a great way to keep including characters that couldn't make it into the official game. If you're a Smash fan, then you know that soul-crushing feeling of seeing one of your favorite characters pop up as a Mii costume because it means they'll never be in the actual game. And you can't have a new Smash game without that feeling. It's a rite of passage. So yeah, let's keep them in here. But I say we merge all three of them into one character. You select the Mii fighter, and then you get to fully customize them with whatever moves that you want from all three of the jobs. Yes, that would create some super busted characters, so they wouldn't be allowed in tournaments. But the Mii fighters were never here to be playable in tournaments. They were always here so that way you could say, haha, look, I made Abraham Lincoln in this game. They're the ultimate just here for fun characters, and letting you fully customize everything about their moveset would be a lot of fun. Okay, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty here, because the rest of these Nintendo characters come from series with only one representative. So you're about to see some whole franchises get snapped out of existence altogether. First up, Captain Falcon. F-Zero just got some kind of love from Nintendo, and the Falcon Punch is one of the most iconic fighting game moves ever. He stays. Next, Little Mac. Punch-Out is another super important franchise for Nintendo, and yes, the last installment was a long time ago. However, people still talk about that game to this day. I keep seeing brand new players getting hooked on the Wii Punch-Out game despite how old it is. So, he stays. Ice Climbers, on the other hand, it was nice that they got to return for Ultimate, but they do not need to return again. They're cut.
They were cut once.
Super fun idea for a character. Little guess. I always appreciate the weird picks. Nobody is still using their Wii Fit balancing board. We can cut her. Then...
Strange.
Ooh, people are going to hate me for this one.
Bro.
Olimar... Cut. Yes, Pikmin is beloved, and it got a brand new game last year that people are really enjoying.
Even as someone...
But if we have...
Bruh. Smash Bros. Is a celebration of like Smash Nintendo characters as well, and this gaming characters in general. And I think Olimar is pretty big. This is bait.
Have to. If we have to make tough cuts, I think we can represent Pikmin with another character without using Olimar. He can be cut, and we will return to this franchise with the new characters. Then the Inklings. Splatoon is one of the biggest, newer Nintendo franchises, at least relatively speaking. They have to stay. But going from newer characters to older characters, Duck Hunt Dog, Mr. Game & Watch, and Rob the Robot are all here to represent older classic Nintendo. I don't think that we need all three of them here. We can cut two of them and keep one.
That's a spicy take. I honestly understand that one.
And out of these three, I'm going to go with Duck Hunt Dog. Duck Hunt was huge back in the day, and the fact that he calls out other sprites from older games that use the Duck Hunt gun is a great way of paying tribute to.
I say if you make okay, so going back to what the hell are we watching? This person decided that the only way to like do something experimental with like rebuilding and cutting from Smash Bros would be like cutting half of the roster by separating it like this, separating half of the original cast and then half of the DLC. So it is a giant number to cut. That is one hell of a homework. If you're telling me like, hey, remove 48 out of the original like characters, not 48, remove like half of that of the original cast that it's not DLC or guest. In that case, I can see the point of like making some extreme cuts in here, but I feel like he's going about it like the wrong way. I feel like there's better way to like represent this.
He gets to stay. Min Min, I'm glad that ARMS got some love because that game is super fun, and I think it's got some really great character designs, but we don't need her in here more than once. Cut. And lastly,
Min Min.
Bayonetta. She was the winner of the original poll to include a brand new fighter. Feels like if you win that, then you get a permanent spot on the roster. And Bayonetta 3 and a totally original spin-off game both came out not that long ago for the Switch.
This one's solid, to be honest, at this point.
She's still front and center for Nintendo. She stays. And now we close it all out with the guest characters. Sonic, easy keep. The rivalry between Nintendo and Sega was the stuff of legends back in the day. Sonic being in this game is a perfect salute to the early days of the console wars. Plus, Sonic is one of the biggest...
I honestly wanted another Sonic character and not just like Shadow Echo Fighter. I wanted Knuckles or Tails.
Video
or
game icons of all time. And you know who else I can say that about?
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. He's one of the most important faces for the entire medium of video games. If you don't understand why he belongs in here, go and learn your arcade history. And you know what? I'm gonna throw Mega Man in there too. Another huge name for the early consoles, especially
Can you imagine?
the original Nintendo system.
Is there a way to double dislike a video?
4, it was a huge moment as Capcom fans had been starving for a new Mega Man game. And they are once again starving for a new game today, so might be a good time to give them some hope. But now, Snake. Snake? Snake?
Everyone is happy. Everyone is back forever.
Yeah, I know he's another huge famous video game icon, and he was one of the first 2 guest characters in Smash, so he is important to the legacy of this series. But I never felt like he fit the tone of Smash all that well, and he has very little connection to Nintendo, and he was mostly included because Kojima wanted him in the game, and Kojima is no longer connected to Konami. So, yeah, I'd be okay with leaving him out. Speaking of Konami, I love that Simon Belmont and Richter Belmont got added, and the Castlevania stage is one of my favorites in the entire game. But if I have to make hard cuts, yeah, I'm going to take them out. I'll try to put some Castlevania love back into the game later.
Fucking hell, Biss. Literally the one genre that created almost between Metroid and Castlevania, they created a genre called Metroidvania. Metroid is a Metroidvania because it's Metroid. But what about the video part? I feel like this person's no. This is insane. Let's go. And then watch. Okay, we still got some characters to see what.
But for now, they can go. Next up, Ryu and Ken.
I honestly understand the Solid Snake cut. It's not the first time they cut Solid Snake. It's a guest, and so while Snake is so super unique, it was a guest at the time. It's not really like the whole. It's not mainly Nintendo anymore. I feel like Castlevania has more Nintendo blood than it does on any other like anything else. I don't know. Does that make sense to me? Because the Castlevania was started in the Nintendo. So did some of Metal Gear, but Metal Gear feels more Sony. If you can catch my drift. What's the Snake the first guest Smash guest announced? Yeah, apparently Snake is not immune to that. It happened already once in the previous game, right? It didn't Snake didn't make it to the Smash for the Wii U and 3DS.
This is a fighting game crossover. Ryu is Mr. Fighting Game. If you can only have one character out there that you can point at and say they are the representative for the entire fighting game genre, it's Ryu. But we don't need Ryu and Ken, so Ken's cut. And while we're at, let's cover the other two fighting game characters, Terry and Kazuya. Love Terry, love Kazuya. SNK and Tekken are legends of the video game world, and I love that they got included in the last game. But I also understand that the vast majority of Smash's player base had zero idea who these characters were, so yeah.
I was more beefing with the original cast cuts than I am with the guest cuts, because I understand the whole ideology of a guest more than anything. You better keep them in triple down voted. No, even I understand this, because as guests, you know, it's the guest lineup. I don't know why he just like. There's so much.
Cloud, Final Fantasy.
Maybe if I take his entire like rules for this cut and then add new, like, hey, take the half of the guest and half of the original cast and then redo this, and you know, cut half and add an entire new half. So maybe that's why a lot of difficult decisions are being made, but still.
Isn't just a massive video game franchise.
I do have to remember this whole entire video
to be the face
purpose is a gimmick.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Final Fantasy. And if you had to pick one character to be the face of Final Fantasy, it's probably going to be Cloud. Keep. But then we come to Sephiroth. He's one of the biggest video game villains of all time, but we have to make hard cuts. And if we got Cloud, I don't think we need a second Final Fantasy character. He can be cut. Sticking with RPG characters, Hero. Hero's a keep. I'll admit I'm not the biggest Dragon Quest fan, only played a few of them. However, in Japan, Dragon Quest is a religion. When a new Dragon Quest game comes out, it's treated like a national holiday because they know nobody is going to show up for work anyways. So because this franchise is so big, because it's so important to the history of video games, and because it is such a legend for the genre, important. Hero stays.
Get salty, Raven,
Next
but
up,
I think that one should stay.
Even though this channel is dedicated mostly to fighting games, Persona
I like Joker, but
is my favorite video game franchise. I know that's shocking for some of y'all, but it's true. I love these games, and I was fighting hard for Joker to get into Smash. And when that trailer for his reveal played at the Game Awards, I damn near cried. But that being said, yeah, it's amazing that he got added. I love seeing him in there, but it was a nice one-time thing. We don't need to bring him back more than that. Plus, he was mostly included to be the representative of the new hotness, that character who is here to represent new cool games. His game is 7 or 8 years old now. He's no longer the new hotness.
No, Raven.
He's cut.
Listen to what you're saying.
Banjo. I know he's pretty low tier in Smash Ultimate, but people fought hard to get him into this game for years. I'm not going to cut him now. Speaking of Microsoft characters, Steve.
Cut.
I know a ton of older Smash fans looked at this character and thought he was a bad choice, but everyone else on the planet went nuts for him.
If he says, chat, I'm not kidding when I say this. If he said keep Steve from Minecraft, I am going to stop the recording of this and say goodbye to YouTube.
Minecraft is the biggest game in the world, and when Steve got added to Smash, he literally broke the internet, and yes, I'm using literally correctly there. Twitter actually crashed after his announcement, and remember, this was back before it was being run by the dumbest Three Stooges brother who breaks it every single month. No, this was back when the site actually functioned, so that's saying something. So yeah, he gets to stay. And I know someone is going to say, but Steve...
I kind of want to see this through.
Steve is so broken, he was banned from competitive play. First off, this is a brand new game. We can always rebalance these characters and make them more playable. And secondly, if you're worried about this game's competitive scene, it's Smash. Nintendo is already going to do everything in their power to wreck it no matter who's in this roster. Might as well try and have fun with it. And the final character, Sora. Listen, if we're talking realistically, there is no way in hell Sora is returning for another Smash Bros. It's a miracle that he got in here at all. The legal hoops that Sakurai had to jump through is stunning. There is no way we would be able to pull something like that off again. But if he could come back, if he could, if there was some crazy clause in the contract that Sakurai managed to sneak past Disney that said that he can forever return
like Kingdom
for all
Hearts
future
to that,
Smashes, no question asked,
but I understand the cut.
then we have to bring him back. Again, it is insane to me that he got in here at all, and Sakurai even revealed that in Smash 4, when they held a poll to see who people wanted in the game, he was number 1. By the way, I love that Sakurai just revealed that, because every single time that a new Smash character gets added, there's always someone on the internet screaming, who wanted this character? So I have to give major props to Sakurai that he started the announcement off with, you did! All of you did! I have the numbers, I have the cold hard results, I know you're all going to complain about this no matter what, so I'm letting you all know right now, I'm not falling for it. I know for a fact you wanted him in this game. So we got a character who was impossible to get, and yet somehow they made it happen. And everyone wanted him in here. If there was any chance we could make this happen again, you would be crazy to cut him. So yeah, if everyone from the last game is still on the table, he's definitely a keep. And that leaves us with exactly 42
That I understand.
keep.
That I understand. I would keep Sora too. He's such a huge part of gaming in general. But I would be okay understanding of a cut for a character like that.
And 42 cuts. I know it may not look like
Steve,
that, but that's just because
cut,
everyone with a massive
cut that.
football head wound up on the cut side, and that just screwed up the symmetry
Steve's
of this whole
boring
thing.
as
But
hell.
trust me, it's even. Everyone happy with the cuts? Because I know I'm not. Yeah, some of these cuts were easy, but some of them were rough. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to issue a blanket-wide I'm sorry statement, because I'm sure that there's at least one cut that everyone hated to see. But now, we have the real meat of today's episode. I now have to fill in all these blank spots. In total, we have 31 full Nintendo characters, 3 Echo Nintendo characters, 6 full guest characters, and 2 Echo guest characters. And I'm just going to clarify something right here. If a character got cut, and then I throw in another character from the same series, that is not me saying, this new character is better than that old character, or this new character deserves to be in the game more than that old character. No, that's just the way that the rules of this challenge worked out. So,
yeah, though once again, I may have been salty about this man's like entire video from the get-go, but it is a challenge that he put in the video. I need to reiterate that to myself. I'm saying that more for myself than for the people watching this video. I am understanding of why, you know, if you tell me cut half of the original cast, what would I do?
So let's see who could possibly fill in these spots as we move into
the roster. Okay, let's see what we got.
I feel like for this one I could just say, just do it and then move on, but no, let's actually go ahead and talk about this. Waluigi has been probably the most requested Nintendo character for Smash for a long time now.
You removed Diddy Kong for this.
I've never been in the Waluigi for Smash camp. In fact, I'm not even sure if people genuinely mean it or if this was just a giant meme that got out of hand. But either way, people have been asking for him for long enough that it feels like it's time to make it real. And as for how he'd fight, remember what I said about Daisy and how I'd love for her to be a representative for the Mario sports games? Well, Waluigi was made specifically for the Mario sports games, and it's been pretty much the only place he's existed over the decades. So if Daisy is cut and I can't have her be the representative for the sports games, that honor definitely falls to Waluigi. Have him smack you with a tennis racket, kick a soccer ball at you, swing a golf club. This guy could be a one-man
We
big
cut
sporting
Rosalina
goods.
for Waluigi. So true.
We got rid of one Mario spin-off, we should probably replace it with another. Although, unlike Dr. Mario, Paper Mario wouldn't be an Echo Fighter in disguise. He would be an actual, completely original character. He could have an up special where he turns into a paper airplane to fly back onto the stage. His parry animation could be him turning to the side to become two-dimensional. That hammer wind-up animation is born to be a forward smash animation. And he could summon out all of his friends from Thousand Year Door for his big final smash where they all do some turn-based damage to the opponent. This character would be
Nintendo
loaded
screaming
with
at the
so
corner.
many references and flavor, and considering that Thousand Year Door is getting a remaster, yeah, why not include him?
Pauline. We got rid of Rosalina for this?
Mario's original girlfriend, and now the mayor of New Donk City, Pauline became a huge hit after Mario Odyssey, so I feel like that's enough to get her into this roster. You could easily give her lots of musical-based attacks, or maybe even let her kick around some old 8-bit pixel barrels to be a reference to her appearance in the original Donkey Kong. And of course, her big final smash has to be her pulling off a huge musical number where her band blows the opponent away.
Toadette? Captain Toad?
It feels like every member of the core Mario family has gotten a chance to be in Smash, except for Toad. And I
did say that. I
understand,
said
he was
Toad
always a very
probably,
supporting character in the
would've been
series.
nice
He never really
in some
stood
kind of
out
way.
all that much. In fact, I'm not entirely sure if there is one single Toad or if that's just the name for all the Toadstool people. But then he eventually got his own series, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. So it felt like he would be a shoo-in for the series after that, but there was one small problem. This is a platform fighter, meaning you have to jump. And part of Captain Toad's gimmick is that he can't jump. This is a puzzle game where you have to figure out how to maneuver around a map without jumping. So he couldn't really work in this game. But honestly, I think we can smudge the details a bit here. We can take some liberties. Give us a trailer for his announcement that shows him discovering some shoes with springs in them. Or we give him like a little helicopter propeller that comes out of his backpack and lets him fly up a little bit. Or maybe you take the giant bird that he fights at the end of his game, and then you have like a tiny chick version of it, and that's sitting in his backpack, and whenever he wants to jump, the bird just comes out and lifts him up into the air. There are totally ways to make this work, and considering that Toad is the last member of the Mario crew to be in this series, we should find a way to make it work.
This is fair. Gino!
Just do it.
Gino bias. Just do it.
Okay. I'll say a little bit more. Gino is second only to Waluigi in terms of Nintendo characters everyone has won in this game. But I've always found that request to be kind of out there because, sure, Super Mario RPG was super popular back in the day. But that day was a long time ago, and Gino hasn't returned except for one quick cameo that most people don't even know about. Plus, there were all these questions going around about does Nintendo fully own Gino since Square made the game, so yeah, it just felt like Gino was a choice that might not have been as obvious as some people thought it was. But Super Mario RPG just got a remake, so that kind of addresses both of those problems. He's back in the public eye, and it's clear that Nintendo has full access to him.
This game again.
So
this game is so freaking good.
The fact that fans have been asking for him for decades now, yeah, go ahead and include him. So that's it for the Mario characters, so let's move on to the next Nintendo superstar, Pokemon.
Oh, it was Cynthia. You know what? I'm down for this.
Okay, some people are probably on board with this, and some people are probably confused. So far, the only Pokemon characters who have been included in Smash are the actual Pokemon themselves.
Would I put
which
Cynthia
makes sense,
though? I don't
they're
think
the
so.
ones that do the actual fighting. But this franchise is full of trainers
Garchomp.
that the fan
I think
base
Garchomp's
loves,
great.
and I want to see some of them get added to the roster. And the first one that I have to include is Cynthia, easily one of the coolest Pokemon champions of all time. She's got a great style, she uses a Garchomp, I don't think I need to go on. Those two things alone get you into this game. But how would she fight? Well, there's two options here. Either we could give her some basic punches and kick animations for her normal attacks, but then for all of her specials and smash moves, she would quickly summon out one of her Pokemon to deliver the attack for her, and then quickly summon them back into her Pokeball, making for some really cool visuals of her swapping her partners in and out as she does her combos. Or we could just have her be like the Pokemon trainer and have her stand in the background, and then we pick 3 of her Pokemon and have her just swap in between those.
See, now that makes more sense. I was thinking Cynthia though. I'm like, Giovanni. Also, Giovanni's kind of plain looking. Not gonna lie, he's the most like average looking man of all time. Iconic, but I'm thinking, what is another trainer other than, because already, Green is there as the girl and the female trainer. But I'm thinking maybe like a rival trainer, maybe like Silver. Will be really cool.
Listen, if I'm throwing one Pokemon human into this game, I have to include another, otherwise it would just feel weird. And if you want to talk about one element of Pokemon that has stuck around for all these years, it's Team Rocket. Each game gets a brand new villain team, but anytime that there's some kind of a spin-off game, or a show, or a mobile game, Team Rocket is always front and center as the bad guys. Plus, I'm always in favor of including more villains in these rosters, so let's include the leader of
You said that as you remove one of the most important villains of all time, King K. Rool.
Rocket, Giovanni. Again, he could either fight in the background like the Pokemon trainer sending out his Pokemon to do the fighting for him, or he could actually get into the battle and summon out Pokemon on the fly for each of his moves, which I think fits Giovanni pretty well, because if there's any Pokemon trainer I could see actually kicking these fighters off of a ledge, it's the literal mob boss. And as for his big final smash, we could have him sick a whole bunch of his Team Rocket goons on the opponent as they all dogpile on him, and then as they're all in some big comedic smoke cloud of fighting, you could have one single Meowth come right out there and jump onto the pile, just as a nice little reference. Speaking of cat-like Pokemon,
Of course.
okay, I needed to add at least one actual Pokemon, and we should probably make it one from the newest game to represent the latest generation. And I've seen multiple polls saying that out of the 3 starters, Meowscarada is the most popular, so they would make sense. But even if they weren't the most popular, I would still be arguing for their inclusion, simply because when you look at all the Pokemon who have been in Smash, we got Incineroar, a fire starter, we got Charizard as his own fighter, another fire starter, and we got Greninja, a water starter.
Heck yes. You know, I'm done for that. Hydrate yourself. I will do it in a minute. Speaking of minutes, yeah, boy, Napster with the raid. How's it freaking going? Welcome in, Raiders. How y'all doing? Welcome in, Raiders. My name is SAIN. I'm a cyber VTuber. Your favorite internet waifu is here. Now I'm playing some videos right now. I'm doing some YouTube recordings. Say hello to the YouTube side, and also thank you for the raid. Let me give you a shout out. Hope you had a lovely stream.
Grass is the only starter type not yet represented in their own slot in this roster. And for probably the first time ever, the grass type is actually the most popular. So yeah, we have to include them. And speaking of tiny cat...
See, Genocide and Maiden, it doesn't matter if it's like competitively viable. It's about who's trending at the moment. It was the same thing for Lucario. It was the same thing for Greninja. That's why they added them to the game. And Incineroar got the same treatment when they were added to Smash Bros. It would make sense to put Meowscarada into this game, honestly. Even I agree with this little decision. I thought this person was gonna cut Greninja, but apparently Greninja is like way too popular and important. Yeah. Also, thank you for the follow. Come in.
Like creatures that we could throw into this game.
Midnight, hell yeah.
Time to move into the Zelda characters, and for years now, whenever people have asked me what Zelda character I want added to Smash, my answer has always been Midna. I know that now Twilight Princess has become a bit forgettable, but everyone still remembers Midna. She's got a great personality. Her giant arm, hair, helmet thing would be perfect for long-range strikes and for reaching up to grab the ledge when she's falling off. And she would ride around on Wolf Link, which I just think would look cool. You tell me there's a way to put a character who rides a wolf into a game, I'm going to take it. For years now, whenever people have asked me what Zelda character I want to add to Smash, my answer has always been Majora. Yes, I know I said the same thing about Midna, but my answer always changes back and forth because I'm incredibly indecisive. This probably isn't the best show for someone like me to host. Majora's Mask came out a long time ago, but over the years, I've seen the audience for it continue to grow as people have reevaluated it and begun praising it for all that it accomplished.
We lost Toon Link for this.
One of the things I always loved about this game was that for once, we got a mainline Zelda game where Ganon wasn't the villain. Majora is such a unique new threat for the Zelda franchise.
I would admit, man, I would keep Skullkid as a boss.
Wide range of powers would make for a great fighter, and his final smash has to be him bringing the moon down and destroying the stage. That honestly, is so perfect for a final.
I wanted Skullkid not as a character. I wanted him as a boss. The same treatment like Marks and other bosses. It would be really cool to fight like all the transformation of the Skullkid. And have a phase where you have to fight the moon or to break something in the moon. It would be really interesting dynamic. I don't know. Smash Bros. Never went there.
And put it in the game anyways.
Have a little dungeon inside like the moon. Who the heck is this?
And for the last Zelda character, I want to get one fighter in here from the most recent games. In other words, from the Breath of the Wild series. So I figured one of the 4 champions would be best. And out of these 4, Dark seemed too big and tanky for a platform fighter.
Please give me the Huckland Shark.
Like a healer than a fire to me. Rivali would actually work great because he can fly, so he could easily get back up onto the stage. But he might work a little too well. He might actually be broken with all of his air maneuverability. So Urbosa seemed like the best answer. She's a strong fighter, and her stats seem like they would be pretty evenly balanced. Plus, she's got lightning powers, meaning out of all 4 of these characters, she would have some of the most flashy attacks. No pun intended. And if you're upset that we're not picking any of the other Guardians, don't worry.
She's hot as hell. Don't get me wrong. This isn't about looks. This isn't about gimmicks. I feel like Sidon would be a little better. We're gonna have Fish Husband
and we could easily fit them in here in some of her moves. Her up special would have to be Rivali, giving her a boost of wind to send her flying back up onto the stage. Her
Sidon would like summon like waves and everything.
Coming in there and making a big swing. So yeah, even though I'm picking her both,
and it can have like
this
Mythos
spot
Grace
is really
as well.
reserved for all 4 of the Guardians together.
Lynn!
All right, time for the Fire Emblem characters. I've got 3 lined up, and before anyone says that's too many, I cut 6 from the main roster. Adding 3 back in is more than fair. However, over the past few Smash installments, all the new Fire Emblem characters have always been from the most recent games. Which makes sense, Smash does help to promote these franchises, so you might as well promote the most recent game.
In here?
But since we cut so many classic Fire Emblem fighters, we should include at least one older character. Now, I'll admit, my knowledge of Fire Emblem games that came out more than a decade ago start to get a little bit foggy, but I do know that Lyn is a major important player in the franchise. She was one of the protagonists of the first Fire Emblem game to come to America, and she's even been in multiple Smash games already as assist trophies, so yeah, I'd say she's a good fit. As I said, typically whenever a new Fire Emblem character gets added to Smash, it's whoever is the newest character.
It's literally from the same games.
Yeah, why break that tradition now? Let's bring in the protagonist of the latest Fire Emblem, Alear. And here's the good thing about their inclusion. Since they have the power to call upon Fire Emblem heroes from the past, that means we can sneak in here all the other Fire Emblem characters that we had to cut. Have all of them be spirits helping Alear out in the fight.
This is understandable. If they replace someone like Byleth for this, understandable.
With the Minato, where every single one of these spirits will give them a different kind of buff. And if you want to go one step beyond that, let's say that whenever Alear does their final smash, whatever spirit they currently have equipped would appear in their final smash animation fighting alongside them. It wouldn't necessarily change the final smash itself, but would be a nice little bit of flavor to throw in there, something just to spice them up and make them feel different.
Yeah! Okay, hold on. Sign me up for the backpedaling Olympics.
Slot was a tough call. I
removed the dislike from this channel. I removed the dislike from this channel. I had to do it.
It was already cut, and that means it would come down to one of the 3 house leaders. And how can I choose which one deserves to be in here the most? My vote would have been for Claude, but even I'll admit, out of those 3 house leaders, he's probably the least important to the plot. And I'm not going to choose between Dimitri or Edelgard because I do not want to start that fight in the comments. But then I remembered Anna. Yeah, if we can't get one character to represent 3 houses, let's get a character to represent Fire Emblem as a whole.
Redemption arc in this video.
Anna is essentially the Sid of the Fire Emblem franchise. There has been a version of Anna in every Fire Emblem game since 1992. So if there is one character who feels like a good face for this series, it's her. Granted, she doesn't fight in a lot of these games. She's typically the merchant, but she has fought in some of them before, and we could get creative with this and give her some moves where she knocks coins out of the enemy and then picks them up. Or give her some kind of a weird luck-based power that's a reference to her role in the gacha mobile game Fire Emblem Heroes, and she can randomly call upon another Fire Emblem character to come out and attack. Sort of like she has her own set of Fire Emblem assist trophies. Even when I cut the Fire Emblem fighters in half, I still find a way to fill this game with Fire Emblem. Although I should probably stop now before we drown this game in swords. So let's move on to something completely different with...
Cut Diddy to put Dixie.
Yes, it's time to cover the Donkey Kong bunch. We got rid of 2 and I'm adding 2 back in there.
What is this move called,
I'm going to include Dixie Kong. She was the star of Donkey Kong Country 3, which I have heard a fair number of people say is the best of the DK Country games, and it feels like if we're getting rid of Diddy Kong, then we should replace him with someone around the same size, same weight, same level of agility. She wouldn't have his peanut pop guns, but we could give her a move where Kiddy Kong runs out and punches across the stage for some kind of a ranged attack, and Dixie would probably have a better stage recovery than Diddy because we would replace his barrel blast with Dixie's hair twirl, which would allow her to fly a good distance to get back onto the platform.
Bruh. Easy mode, Funky Kong.
Okay, I'll admit, I'm mostly picking this one because if this got announced, I would love to see people making mock-ups of the game cover with the now including Funky Mode sticker. Now, in full disclosure, I almost made Funky an Echo Fighter because I can totally see him having some moves in common with DK, but he's got just enough originality that I feel like we could make him a fully fleshed out character. And a lot of that would be because of his surfboard. Let him use it as his side special to surf across the stage, or use it as his up special to hop off the board and get some air. And if you want to put a really weird reference in here, for his final smash, have him put on some camo and pull out a ton of wooden weapons to reference his appearance in Donkey Kong 64. I've always wondered what the heck was up with that, by the way. Funky went through a weird dark phase in the late 90s.
It was the Attitude Era. Ayo, Callie Barry?
We have to include some more Splatoon characters. It's been one of Nintendo's biggest
Raven,
successes
remove another dislike.
You know what? Why am I even doing this? You all
Go
know
back
why
to your
Splatoon
other account.
is in here. But picking who to include was rough, because all three Splatoons have had one group of breakout characters, the host of the Inkopolis News, so I had to include one of these duos. But who to include? Kelly and Mari were the iconic original hosts, but then off the hook, the duo Pearl and Marina were big favorites in the second game, and the trio Deep Cuts is the current host of the third game, so we would get some good promotion out of it, but I had to pick one of them.
One dislike.
Until I realized, no I don't, because this is Smash Bros, and we've got Echo Fighters. Yeah, let's include Callie and Mari as a two-person team, sort of like the Ice Climbers, except low with musical and paint-based attacks, but then put Pearl and Marina in there as their Echo Fighters. Sadly, I can't squeeze Deep Cuts in here since there's 3 members of their squad, but maybe we could fit them in here as an assist trophy. I think Splatoon fans would be pretty happy if they picked up an assist trophy and Shiver and Fry hopped out riding across the stage on top of Big Man. And you know what, seeing as how we have now brought up Echo Fighters, we still have 2 more that we need to get to, so let's go ahead and tackle them right now. First up, Animal Crossing is big for Nintendo, so we should put in here a new character, but very few characters have enough variety to them for us to justify giving them an entire original moveset. So let's go with Tom Nook and give him half of Villager's moves and half of Isabel's moves. And maybe
I don't think
we
Tom
can
needs to
clear
be
up
in
enough
there.
room to give him one unique move, like maybe he drops a bag of money onto the stage, and if anyone picks it up, then they'll temporarily be slowed down.
Cut this and bring back someone from the graveyard.
Then we can throw Jean in here as an Echo Fire for Bayonetta. I know someone is going to say that Bayo counts as a guest character, but again, I already laid that out. Nintendo helps to fund these games. They're Nintendo exclusive.
Another
she counts as a Nintendo character.
Guest character. This isn't guest. This is actually a part of the Nintendo.
We need to include some more Xenoblade references, because
no,
over the past few years, this
Mitra.
franchise has gone from a tiny niche title that we have to beg Nintendo for a port of, to being a juggernaut. It's not just one of the most highly acclaimed modern-day RPGs, I'd be willing to say it's now one of the current pillars for Nintendo. It's now one of those titles that Nintendo proudly dedicates time to showing off.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo in the next Smash cuts Shulk and add this guy. And then just leave this as the only Xenoblade rep. And it kind of would be sort of understanding.
Include a character from Xenoblade 3, and I was torn between Noah and Mio. Noah is the obvious choice, but I've never been the biggest fan of just throwing in here an obvious choice simply because they're obvious. But then I thought, you know, Pyra and Mithra were both merged together into the same character. Granted, they had lore reasons to be that way, but you could kind of argue the same for Noah and Mio. Yeah, to put it very simply, Noah and Mio are sort of bonded together.
Scout from X.
So here's my idea. Make Noah and Mio another character that can swap between each other. Except here's how it would be unique. When you're Noah, your side special would involve summoning out Mio to attack. And then when Mio is out there, your side special would involve summoning out Noah to attack. Why would you do this? Because when you summon them out for these attacks, you would still be able to move around while your assist is setting up their attack. In Xenoblade, you control one member of your party at a time, while the rest of the team is sort of on autopilot. So you have to figure out what you should do in order to play off
just keep
what
the guy
computer-controlled characters are doing. So this would be my way of trying to incorporate that into this game. You control Noah while Mio is auto-attacking, or vice versa, which would also allow you to set up some really interesting combos or mix up your opponent in a variety of ways. But the other reason I'm putting the two of them together is because in the game,
this man is taking the Ice Climber dynamic and adding way too much on top of it.
So making these two characters kind of one fighter in the roster would be an excellent excuse to turn that into their final smash, with this Ouroboros form being different depending on whether or not you're playing as Noah or Mio when you activate it. Okay, that's probably the most complicated character in this roster, so for anyone who thought I was going through these characters way too quickly, I hope you enjoy that. Now back to going through these characters way too quickly.
What do we have in here?
Rex, this one is fairly self-explanatory. We should have more than just one new Xenoblade representative. People wanted Rex in the last game, but they couldn't get him in here in time. And last year, a new DLC dropped for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that now featured a grown-up, super buff Rex, and I have heard Xenoblade fans calling that DLC a masterpiece. So, if we include that version of Rex, then not only do we get the character people wanted, but we also get some nice synergy working off the latest release in the Xenoblade franchise. It works on pretty much every level, so let's go ahead and do it. Now, Xenoblade was the last franchise we're going to be tackling with more than one character, so that means we're about to start throwing out a bunch of weird and wild candidates from all over the place back to back. Starting with...
It was already a little strange that they had a Pyra Mithra instead of Rex. But I guess, you know, for the sake of fan service and what people kind of wanted in the suggestion, they made a new inclusion of like the representation of those characters into the games. Adding Rex would be a little strange now. If anything, I honestly, adding Rex as an adult would be a little strange too. I don't know how I feel about that. I think like the guy is just trying to appeal to the people who wanted Pyre and Metroid back. What a weird selection.
We need another Kirby representative in here. It's one of Nintendo's biggest franchises, and considering that it gets brand new games and re-releases so quickly, I'm sure another one will get announced before I finish this
lost faith in this man. I'm just watching. I'm here for the road.
Fighter in here.
I'm here for the train wreck.
I was very tempted to go with any of the various villains from the franchise, since I see a lot of love for them all over the fan base. I was particularly leaning towards Magolor, since they recently put out Dreamland Deluxe, which includes some brand new levels that featured Magolor as a playable character. But over the years, there is one Kirby character I have seen fans asking for more than any other. What? No, don't be ridiculous. Hey, there he is. Yeah, Kirby fans love Bandana Waddle Dee, and he's been in a metric ton of games. In fact, at this point, it's probably easier to list off the Kirby games he isn't in. Plus, he's got a spear for some good range normals, and he's even been in multiple Kirby-themed fighting games, so we already have a good idea of what his moveset would be. Side note, how the heck are there multiple Kirby-themed fighting games?
Just put Poppy Ross. Just put Poppy Ross.
Black Shadow. Alright, I'm making a bit of a reach here, but I mentioned earlier that Captain Falcon being in Smash Bros. Has done more for F-Zero than the actual F-Zero games. And over time, we've heard the cry for a new F-Zero game growing and growing with each passing year. Like, it's getting to that point where people are tired of waiting and they want answers. In fact, I mean that literally. Someone actually bought stocks in Nintendo just so they could go to the shareholders meeting and ask them about a new F-Zero game. That actually happened. That's real. So you know what? I believe if the next Smash Bros. Add a brand new F-Zero character, they would probably be the most talked about character in that starting roster, at least out of all the Nintendo characters. People would lose their mind if suddenly there was someone new from F-Zero in this game. And hey, they put out that F-Zero Battle Royale game, so for the first time in decades, Nintendo is actually paying attention to the series. So
I did play it not long ago.
Let's make it happen. And out of all the other racers, I'm going to go with the big baddie, Black Shadow. How would he play? Doesn't matter. Captain Falcon's moveset in Smash is 100% original to Smash, and everyone is cool with that. So just get creative. Give him some attacks that matches big, overwhelming presence.
I did want a Master Chief in
lines as Ganondorf or Bowser or any of the other big villains in this series, and you're
I feel like that's gonna get mentioned right now, by the way.
After years of being dormant and Metroid Prime 4 being left on the side of milk cartons, the Metroid series has come roaring back with the Metroid Prime Remaster and, more importantly, the long-awaited release of Metroid
This man was very hot.
And this not only re-energized older Metroid fans, but also created a brand new audience that fell in love with Samus and her space bounty hunting adventures.
Make Dark Samus' skin.
So here's the big bad of that game, Raven's Beak. And if you saw his final boss fight, you can pretty much imagine how he would fight. There was no shortage of moves that we could pull from that game, and he definitely showed off a good bit of agility that could definitely come in handy in a platform fighter. In fact, if they decided to bring unique boss fights back for the next Smash Bros., I was seriously thinking about leaving Raven's Beak off this roster so we could save him for that. But nah, if there's gonna be one Metroid character that we save for a boss fight, it's gotta be Kraid. You have to jump on platforms in order to fight him, and he's way too big for the regular roster. Wait, did I just say that a Metroid character was too big for this roster? Oh god, this is weird. This must be how Sakurai felt. Let's ignore the boss fights for now and just move on to the rest of the roster.
Is this the Olimar pick?
The Rescue Corps. Alright, I know that we cut Olimar, and I admitted that it seemed crazy since Pikmin is so beloved and they got a brand new game last year and all the fans went nuts for it. But I wanted to get a representative from that game in here, and I realized that they would share a lot of moves in common with Olimar. But
see, now it makes sense why he removed Olimar.
Smash to justify giving us a brand new version of Olimar.
This is honestly kind of understandable. Just make it a skin.
Another fighter who has some similar moves. So let's include your playable character from Pikmin 3 in here, who doesn't actually have a name. But they're a member of the Rescue Corps, so let's just call them the Rescue Corps. And like the Inklings or the Villager, this will be one of those spots where every color is a different character design. Heck, maybe one of them could even be Olimar, or one of them could be one of the other characters, like Alf or Brittany. And they would share similarities with Olimar, but we could still spice up their gameplay by giving them some of the new Pikmin from Pikmin 3 to throw out there, or you could summon out your new doggo friend for an attack.
These arms? Oh, I know this.
I know that ARMS failed to take off beyond just being a quirky, unique little title for Switch's launch, but I still feel like it's a super fun game with a really unique cast of characters with some great design.
Nah, I think Arms got the representation already. Give it a pass. The Switch is done.
We should include multiple characters, all as different skins, because since you can swap weapons in and out between your characters in this game, it means that you could justify having multiple characters all in one slot, because when you get right down to it, they could all kind of fight the same. Except that wouldn't work for all the Arms fighters. Some of them are just too unique, so you couldn't make them different skins. And wouldn't you know it, one of those characters happens to be the most popular one in the entire game. Yes, Twintel was easily the most talked about character when this game came out, and yes, we all know why that is, but it's not important.
It's because of the ass. It's just because of the ass. Also, Brown Mama. That's all.
What's important is that if you want to get people even remotely interested in a new fighter from Arms, it needs to be the most popular character. Now, let me go ahead and say, I'm actually okay with her not being in Smash Ultimate simply because she didn't actually fight with her arms. And I kind of feel like your first representative from Arms should, you know, use their arms. But we already got Min Min in the last game, so now I feel like everyone is on the table. So yeah, let's go ahead and include the most popular character.
They could have easily just like make some multiple, like Springman and all of them. They could just add not all of them, you know, at least like 4 representatives in like skin swap. That's genuinely what I wanted out of like Smash Bros. I would have been happy by paying like skins, like new skins, like give me I don't know, a summer themed Mario or something like that, or some other little surprising gimmick on a character, and I would have been perfectly fine with that. If they done that with Arms, they just add the new skins of the characters, keep the moves essentially the same, I would have been completely fine. And is this Ashley? Fighters need more friends. Honestly, tons of people would have been way happier if they just add more skins into the game. Problem solved. You can have like 200 characters just by switching around their skins. Modders already do that.
Ashley, we got Wario in this game, and Wario has 2 franchises under his belt. One of which Nintendo has all but forgotten about, and the other one they continue to support. Well, I say we take Wario and keep him mostly focused towards the Wario Land game. And we bring Ashley in here, and she becomes the representative for the WarioWare games. She's got some magical attacks that we could bring out, but for many of her specials, she could bring out some of the other WarioWare characters, or trap the opponent in some kind of a mini-game that they have to figure their way out of. She would easily be one of the trickiest characters in the entire game to learn, but she would also be one of the trickiest characters to go up against, because when I think of a representative from WarioWare, I think of someone who wouldn't be afraid to get weird. Alright, that is it for the characters from series that have already been in Smash. So let's start putting some new Nintendo faces into this roster. Although admittedly, that's going to be kind of hard because holy cow, have you seen how many characters are already in this thing? But there's still a few corners of Nintendo's library that have not been pulled from just yet.
Oh, these little cutscenes are so cute. Oh yeah, this was almost like a
okay, I'm going to start this off by saying, I will admit, I do not know a whole lot about Chibi Robo. But I do know that Chibi Robo fans are angry at Nintendo, so I'm guessing it's a good series that has mostly been ignored over the past couple of years or has been done dirty in the most recent installments, and I'm guessing that this little robot popping up in Smash would be a nice way to put out some of those fires. Plus, considering how many tools Chibi Robo can use in those games, they would have a ton of possible moves that we could pull from. Imagine having an attack where you pull out a toothbrush
I think there's more to explore, Nintendo.
It doesn't sound like much, but if you do that at the edge, it would be an amazing way of keeping the opponent from being able to get back up onto the stage. Or you could use that zipline of theirs to reach up and grab onto the stage like a grappling hook when you're about to fall off. I mean, the Chibi Robo fans love the zipline. At least I assume they do. I hear them talking about it all the time, but I don't pay attention to the context. The point is, I'd say that out of all the franchises being published by Nintendo that haven't been in Smash so far, Chibi Robo not only has the dedicated audience, but also the moveset potential to be a perfect inclusion.
Oh my god, of course.
Advance Wars was a really fascinating strategy game that Nintendo put out almost 2 decades ago. But after all this time, they finally got a moment in the spotlight again just last year. Granted, it was overshadowed by some rather uncomfortable real-world stuff, but hey, it's Advance Wars. That's actually kind of par for the course for this series. So let's include one of the characters from there, and Andy is the face of the series, so he's the obvious choice. And I know I said earlier that I'm not always the biggest fan of including the obvious choice just because they're the obvious choice.
You forgot this came out.
Advance Wars doesn't have an audience big enough for us to pull out the obscure grab, so Andy's in. Let's give him the ability to summon out little tanks or planes that would slowly make their way across the stage or launch attacks from afar as he gets to keep running around and attacking the opponent with his big wrench. He'd be a character with tons of crazy potential. As long as you can think 5 steps ahead when you're trying to figure out where to place your tanks and thinking about how long it'll take them to fire or how long it'll take them to move. In other words, he'd be perfect for people who play strategy games.
Let's freaking go. Now we're talking.
Isaac. I loved Golden Sun when I was a kid. It was one of my first exposures to the RPG genre.
People were
and
shocked
currently, nostalgia levels for that game
this
are
one
as
did not get
high
in.
as they are ever going to get. So let's throw that fan base a bone and put Isaac in here. He was already in Smash Ultimate as
from
an
Golden
assist
Sun.
trophy where he could push the opponent off the stage, so we've already got a good idea of what his side special would be. And as for his other moves, Golden Sun has no shortage of crazy, big, explosive, magical attacks that I would
But we
love
already
to see
have
him
Hero,
use.
and that's
But
kind of
maybe
the
give him some
same. I'm
variety.
kind of happy.
Every
Is
single
it
one of
weird to
his normal-
compare Hero to this character? They both kind of have the same dynamic. They both come from the same bloodline of like turn-based JRPGs. They're not the same company though, but it's heavily inspired by, you know. So this fits already. The hero representation kind of fits this kind of role. That's why I was like satisfied that someone like that got represented in this game with the aesthetic and everything.
Specials would have
That's my
two
take on
different
it.
versions. You use the attack as it is, and the normal version of the attack would come out. But let's say that his down special would call on one of the Djinns to come in there and power him up. And then after you're powered up, your next special would be a bigger,
It's more
more powerful
interesting.
version of that move. This would be a great way to incorporate some of the unique mechanics from Golden Sun, but would also be a good way to keep Isaac from just being another RPG guy. This would actually make him stand out and be different.
And Starfy. I play Starfy. I'm currently
Starfy.
playing one of them as well
This
on the
might
Switch.
seem like an odd choice because a lot of people only know of the legendary Starfy for the DS, but that's just because that's the only Starfy game that ever left Japan. Before that game's release, there were 4 other Starfy games, meaning Starfy has more games under his belt than like half the characters in this roster. And while I'll admit I've never
I
played
think
any of
it's a
these
little
games
plain.
myself, I do know they're a widely applauded platformer series. And
Yeah,
while
you
spinning
want
and jumping is the
Starfy?
majority
Put
of Starfy's
Rosalina
moveset,
back,
he
you-
does have a pretty big group
you
of friends,
dumbass.
and he could use them to give him unique specials, including
There's a
turning
little
him
star you
into
can control.
whatever this is. I mean, that looks like a whole moveset right there by itself. I don't think I have to explain anything else.
Nah, it's kind of boring. Sin and Punishment?
Saki Amamiya. Coming up next in the
Nah,
long list of
pass.
games that have die-hard fan bases, yet I don't know anything about them, Sin and Punishment. This is one
Pretty
of the
cute
most
game, I
critically
played it
acclaimed
once.
shooters in history, and just like Golden Sun, it did recently come to the Switch's digital library. That means there's finally a way to legally play it again. So let's go ahead and help promote this series a little bit more by adding the protagonist of
Nah.
the first game, Saki Amamiya. Since he's from a rail shooter, Saki
Bring
would
back
obviously
from the
be a
dead.
zoner with a wide variety of rapid-fire blast
Destroy
attacks.
this choice
Also,
and
there's a moment in the
bring
game
someone
where you
else back
swap
from the
control
dead.
between Saki and another character, Iron Joe. And from what I can tell from watching gameplay footage, she appears
Yeah,
to play
I can
very
see that,
similar to
Brain
Saki.
Maiden. This
Well,
man
Sin
ran
Punishment
out
isn't big enough for
characters to
Saki
say,
getting
and
Echo
it's now
Fighter,
just
but
naming
maybe we could make
assist
half of Saki's
trophies.
skins
Watch it
Iron.
name Bomberman next.
I'd like to
Watch it be
remind the Sin
Bomberman.
Punishment fans that I know nothing about this franchise other than what I researched for this video.
If he doesn't
so
even
if
mention
I'm
like
way off on
acknowledge that
assuming they would play
Bomberman in this
similar, then
video,
I
I'd be so
apologize.
extremely surprised.
And I also apologize because I'm 90% sure I mispronounced Iron Joe.
Bomberman, get the fuck out of here. I love
And
Written
for the
Heaven,
last
but
new
this
Nintendo
was
character, people
a big
love
rumor for a
Rhythm
while
Heaven.
from
And
like
I don't
stupid
mean like
fake
people love
leakers.
Sin and Punishment, and people
Eh.
love Chibi Robo.
Just give me
No,
the 3 little
all of these
guys, and
franchises that
if you're
I
gonna
listed
add
off
Rhythm
have
Heaven.
fans,
Apparently it was
but
considered
Rhythm Heaven
Sakurai.
has fans that live and breathe this series. But it is just a series of mini games, so it's kind
Just
of
put
hard
the
to
little
fit
guys
into
from
a
this
fighting
game.
Is what I would
Yeah, the
have said,
core
except
kid.
we already include Ashley to represent WarioWare.
And even
so
them
screw
are
it,
like,
we already
eh.
crossed that line. Why back off now? And as for which character should represent the series, I know a lot of fans were asking for the Choir Kids back when Smash Ultimate was coming out, but come on, it's a fighting game. And this is Karate Joe. He's an
Nah.
actual fighter. We know what his punches look like. We know what his kicks look like. He's the obvious choice. But just like I mentioned with Ashley,
This kind of
for each
character
of his
fits as an
specials, he
assist
can
trophy,
summon
not
out
gonna
some of
lie.
the other characters from the various minigames.
Yeah, so the Game & Watch has more
Also, for his
personality
wing
than
pose,
this,
it
at least
has
now.
to be him getting interviewed by the girl from the ringside game. And so, we are now through with all the new Nintendo characters, which leaves us with 8 new guest characters, 2 of whom have to be Echo Fighters. Now, I know it would be easy to just pick the 8 biggest video game characters that I can think of and call it a day, and considering what Smash Bros. Has turned into,
Bomberman, Master Chief
that's
better be in
actually a
there.
realistic option at this point. Literally, nobody is off limits anymore. But you know me, that's not fun to just list off a bunch of characters that are popular.
Shovel Knight's gonna
I'm
get
going to
mentioned,
challenge
watch it.
myself to pick characters who I feel have some kind of a connection to Nintendo, or to other characters in Smash Bros, or they fill some kind of a role that I feel needs to be represented in this game. For example, I love Dante. I know people want him to be in Smash Ultimate, but Devil May Cry has next to nothing to do with Nintendo, and if you're looking for someone to represent character action games, we already got Bayonetta in here, so I'm going to hold off on him. Everyone understand? No? Great, let's get to it.
Oh yeah, if you're, there you go. Let's Shovel Knight. You're not wrong. If I already removed, okay, I gave them a dislike, and I removed it because they mentioned Anna. If they bring fucking Fortnite into this, not that I hate Fortnite, by the way. I love playing Fortnite. I love collabing with Fortnite. I love playing Fortnite with my friends. Fortnite's an amazing game, by the way. But Fortnite, please do not put it in Smash Bros. No.
Shovel Knight. I've said before, and I'll say it until it finally happens.
Shovel Knight. You know, indie games existed way before Shovel Knight, but something about Shovel Knight reignited the indie scene an extreme amount. So this character has a huge respect in the community.
Smash Bros represents almost every corner of gaming with its roster, but it needs someone to be the face of indie games. And even after all these years, that face is Shovel Knight. But even beyond just being one of the biggest breakout indie characters of all time, Shovel Knight also has some connections to Nintendo. When his game was originally coming out, Yacht Games and Nintendo worked closely with each other in order to advertise Shovel Knight for the Wii U. So much so, he became one of the only third-party characters to get an amiibo. And the connection between Shovel Knight and Nintendo didn't stop there, as he even became an assist trophy in Smash Ultimate. So it's time that we finally turn him into a real fighter. For his neutral special,
I remember when I saw that video of Shovel Knight, I screamed so hard, like yes. And then when I saw it was on his trophy, I was like, no! I literally like broke down, like damn it, that was kind of a, it's either Chante or this.
Dig into the ground and kick up some jewels that he sends across the stage to hit the
opponent. Undertale. Oh yeah, that's like right now. But you know, I'm talking about the person who reignited like indie game in the scene when Shovel Knight came out. It was like so huge. It was bigger than Undertale, by the way. You may not think that, but at the time. I'm not speaking now in volume. I'm speaking at the time, the breakdown on the gaming industry monetarily, console selling. I'm talking about like people wanted this guy's face everywhere in like big companies. They wanted it to not be indie anymore because how much this character represented. Undertale is huge among the community. It's way bigger than Undertale is bigger than Shovel Knight, but the impact in the gaming industry that Shovel Knight did, that hey, people can go back to liking indie games like this, and then WayForward started making things like DuckTales and all those other games, and then come gaming, even like AAA companies started going, you know what, we should return back to tradition and make some Mega Man classic games and make some other games. The impact was historical. Undertale did some of that, yes, in the community, but the first initial impact, the strike of Shovel Knight was mind-blowing. Companies like turn an eye. That's what's so powerful about Shovel Knight. Undertale, much bigger than Shovel Knight. The impact that Shovel Knight made, once again, much important.
Off the opponent's head. For his up special, Shield Knight could appear and give him a boost to send him flying into the air. I could keep going, but it's clear Shovel Knight would have a full moveset that would fit perfectly into this game, and people have won Shovel Knight in Smash so bad that other fighting games have already grabbed him up. So let's go ahead and make it happen.
Chun-Li, of course. I didn't mention this one too.
Okay, this one feels like an obvious choice to me, but I'll probably still have to defend it a bit. Since Smash Bros. Is a fighting game crossover, I feel like we should include some more fighting game characters, especially since I got rid of 3 of them. And so far, this series has represented Street Fighter, Tekken, Virtua Fighter with an assist trophy, and pretty much all of SNK. So when it comes to a new fighter, I know a ton of people out there want Scorpion or Sub-Zero since they're the face of Mortal Kombat.
No,
or
some
bad guy since he represents Guilty Gear, and to an extent, all of Arc System works. And I totally get that. I think that all 3 of those are great choices. But Chun-Li to me feels like one of the most important fighting game characters.
I was kind of surprised she wasn't in
She's literally called the First Lady of fighting games, and she's an icon. And when people think of fighting game characters, I'd say she comes up more than any of those other characters. In fact, she might even come up more often than Ryu. So yeah, I know that people are going to argue that
she was this isn't a joke, by the way. There were magazines like Game Pro, I think it was, or whatever the name was, calling Chun-Li like the face of like hentai at some point, along with Tifa and everything. So if we learn something about Overwatch corn and Overwatch like development and everything, it would be like Chun-Li made a huge impact on that atmosphere as well. Honestly, as much of a joke that sounds, it's like it's the recognizable. It just talks about the recognition of the branding. Makes sense.
I shouldn't be doubling up on Street Fighter characters.
But I don't want to. I don't want to only recognize Chun-Li because of that. I'm just saying because of that. I was just saying that's a fun fact. Chun-Li has been a very important historical character in gaming as well.
So many other franchises
So
that haven't been represented
Nightmare?
yet, but I think
Not as
Chun-Li
big
is
as
so
Chun-Li,
important
though.
to this entire genre that's warranted. And I would also say that
So
compared to, say,
Calibur is really
Scorpion or
iconic,
Sub-Zero,
but
she
not.
fits the tone of
But
Smash
not
Bros.
like.
Far better.
So Calibur is iconic. It's a 3D fighter, but Virtua Fighter was already represented in his game, and also there's Tekken. 3D fighters that have more, So if we're gonna put a like a leaderboard of like 3D fighters that are iconic, there's already way too many above Sword Calibur, unfortunately. As much as I love Sword Calibur as well.
Sure. Remember what I said about tone for later in this video when I completely ignore that. Soma Cruz.
Is this Soma Cruz?
Again, another choice I'm sure some people are going to be arguing about, but Castlevania is such an iconic series.
I'm surprised this dude didn't go to the next assist trophy like Alucard.
And a series that was important to Nintendo's early days that I felt bad removing its two representatives. But as I said earlier, we had to make some tough cuts, and when it comes to Castlevania, there's tons of other popular characters that we could put in here as that series representative. And if we're talking about the most popular character to represent the—
See, now it kind of makes sense why the dynamic this person was going for with the cuts. Removing Simon is kind of iffy. Simon is just like the face of Castlevania at
this
this point.
entire series, it's Alucard. But Alucard has practically nothing to do with Nintendo. He was one of the playable characters in Castlevania 3, and that's about it. However, during the days of the Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS, Castlevania saw an explosion on these Nintendo handhelds. There were multiple games coming out for these consoles, which many fans call some of the best in the entire series. So if we want to talk about a Castlevania representative who was important to Nintendo, I've got to go with Soma Cruz, the star of Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow. Two games that, to me, were kind of the face of this handheld Castlevania revolution. And the best part is, we could totally just take the gun animation from Joker and just carry it on over to Soma. I'm totally kidding about that, by the way. Soma has like 20 or 30 weapons in his game. We're probably not going to use the gun.
Hell yeah, okay. Is this enough for me to give them a like in the video? Not exactly, but it's so close and tentative. Fine, Raven, now the video has 0 dislikes. Okay. Isn't this the guy who's on the worst Nintendo the Xbox ad cover? Yeah, I was gonna reference that. That was a reference to the Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. No, the Dawn of Sorrow. It's got the worst, greatest hit reprint of all time. Now it's neutral. Yeah, pretty much.
Shantae. This is another character who I almost always see topping the charts when people ask who should be in Smash. I know I've said 1,000 times now about other characters, but yes, Shantae is a huge fan favorite character. Her fan base is outspoken and has been pushing for her to be in this game for a while. In fact, she even got Sprite in the last game, and when you look at all the stats, I think Shantae actually is a perfect fit for Smash. She has a long line of games, with the first one being on the Game Boy Color, so she has a connection to Nintendo, and she's a platform character, so she would transfer perfectly into a platform fighter. So yeah, let's get her in this game, and make sure to give her a stage loaded with personality. The world of her games is full of so much life and color and energy, and she's got so many supporting characters, we would have to fit all of that into a stage. It's the perfect place to set a fight.
Ace Attorney.
I know I'm doubling up on Capcom guests, but thanks to all the re-releases that Phoenix
More
Wright has
Capcom
recently
stuff.
gotten, that character has exploded for a brand new generation of players. And he got his start all the way back on the Game Boy Advance.
People kind of wanted this
This
Smash,
beloved
honestly.
series went through its entire lifespan, over 10 games, both mainstream and spin-offs, all on Nintendo hardware.
This is
we've got an
fine, but
iconic
still not
video
gonna
game
like the
character
video.
with a large resume under his belt.
Maybe
who is
if they
suddenly
have
popular
a
again,
third positive-
And his entire history up until the re-releases were all Nintendo exclusive. Yeah, he was born for this roster. And he's even been in a fighting game before. We all remember him in Marvel vs. Capcom, but he was so unique in there, with each of his attacks being references to how his game plays, which is kind of how Smash characters are designed. Yeah, almost none of his moves in Marvel are actual attacks. They're just references to how the Phoenix Wright games play. And I can say that about so many of the characters in Smash Bros, so we could transfer that moveset directly into Smash. In fact, Phoenix Wright makes so much sense for this roster, I'm going to give him one of our 2 Echo characters. That's right, we're throwing in there his chief rival,
Miles
Edgeworth.
Of
Since
course.
Phoenix Wright is a defense attorney and Edgeworth is a prosecutor, I feel like this is an obvious
Isn't Chrome in this game?
Edgeworth has higher attack.
I think
Phoenix
Chrome has made a
defense.
crossover with
Easy, done. Meaning we
Phoenix
only
Wright
have
at some point,
one
yeah.
other Echo fighter to cover, so let's go ahead and tackle them now.
Of course. Echo Fighter time. Shadow the Hedgehog.
Feels like we should include
Easy
another
peek.
Sonic character in here. He's one of the biggest video game icons of all. Wait, am I really about to explain Sonic? You all know Sonic. You all know he's big. You all know he has a legendary history with Nintendo, and thanks to all of his movies and the never-ending flood of games, he's bigger now than he's been in decades. And even though Tails or Knuckles or Dr. Eggman would make a ton of sense, we need an Echo fighter, and Shadow would work just fine for that.
Shadow
would have
been
in the
ideal.
movie that's coming out later
Legit.
this year, so yeah,
I would
there's
have taken
no other choice here.
a skin
He can
swap.
play exactly the same as Sonic, except for his final smash, which we would change around to be unique just for him. Or we could even steal Bayonetta's Witch Time mechanic and give it to Shadow to give him some kind of a chaos-controlled time manipulation. And that brings us to the final guest character and the final
Shadow not
character
being
in
in
this
Smash
roster.
wasn't crime.
And for the
It was
final
kind of a
spot,
crime, honestly.
we have to go out big. We need someone to break the door down and take the world by storm, and nobody is a better option for that than...
Doomslayer over Master Chief?
Just do it. Listen, I know that Doom might not have the biggest connection to Nintendo, although Doom 64 is certainly worthy to bring up. But Doom is important enough to the history of video games itself that if we're
I can
putting
see
together
this. I'm
a
okay with
massive
either
video game crossover, it
Master
feels like he
Chief or
belongs in
Doomslayer.
here.
I'm good.
This one game is almost entirely responsible for the explosion of first-person shooters that we got all throughout the 90s. Every single year, heck, every single month, we were getting brand new first-person shooters because everyone wanted to be the next Doom. And it's continuously been ported to almost everything. There is an entire subsection of first-person shooters still to this day that are referred to as boomer shooters, and we all know what those
Toho
games are
should be
taking
in it.
inspiration from.
Ooh, I would
So
love
yes,
that.
to be the face of the first-person shooter genre in Smash Bros, we need Doom Guy. You could give him a decent number of projectiles, a grab where he beats you up as your character starts glowing like it's the family-friendly version of the glory kills in his game. And for his final smash, he has to pull out the BFG. And on his stage, we could load that thing full of floating Caco demons, and if you hit them, then they could explode as an item pops out of them. Or if you want to get really weird with his stage, you could have a secret on there where if the opponent is falling off the stage, they could then grab onto an invisible ledge and then climb back up underneath the stage to
That's too
reveal a
much.
secret old-school 16-bit graphic room underneath the stage, kind of like the secret rooms in Doom 2016. So yeah, his franchise is legendary and innovative, and he's got a full moveset. But there's one other reason to include him, and let's be real, it's the
Isabel.
actual reason I'm putting Doomslayer in here. It's because of the memes. Yeah, I'll admit it. I'm putting him in here because, yes, he does deserve it, but also because for the past 4 years now, Doom and Animal Crossing have had the weirdest friendship of all time on the internet. The reveal trailer alone of him coming to the village and meeting Isabel would be the second time that Smash Bros. Broke the internet. And for anyone who says that you shouldn't put a character into this game just because everyone makes jokes about it, why do you think Waluigi was in here? Yeah, let's not act like we're all above that at this point.
Yeah.
We started this roster
No,
off
totally
with a character who
deserve,
was
honestly,
included simply
in my
because of the
opinion as
memes.
well.
We're going out on a character who was included simply because of the memes.
The big gun.
And there you have it, everyone. Over 40 characters gone and over 40 characters added. Thank you all for joining us for one of the weirdest
felt like,
build the rosters yet. But you know what? As bizarre as this episode was, that's kind of why I love Build a Roster. I've said many times before, but to me, Build a Roster isn't just listing off a bunch of characters that I like. No, it's more of a big thought experiment. It's how would you build these rosters within all these crazy restrictions?
How would I build this roster? There were, as said in the chat, there was a point where it felt like they were just shoving in assist trophies. Not a single mention of Bomberman, by the way. I don't know why I'm so adamant about Bomberman, but I feel like Bomberman got super dirty as being one of the most icons. Or Rayman, but those were, Rayman, it's more of a guess. If anyone has more connections than Nintendo than those two characters, I feel like Bomberman does. And Bomberman got a little bit dirty.
That. In fact, I recommend that you all try it at home. Get some friends together and try to figure out how you would build this new Smash Bros. If you had to remove half the old cast, then add that many on. And if you want to go that extra step, try to match Nintendo characters and guest
like
characters.
Like the creator of Ultra Kill said, it's a good thing you guys are in charge because it would suck. Fans have like the weirdest like fantasy sometimes. I understand fans who want like cool Pokemon to exist. Even I am upset about some of the current Pokemon design. Not every Pokemon is like ideal, but then if you leave it to fans would only pick like edgy or like wolf and dragon Pokemon to exist. That's how most like fan games look, instead of looking, you know, actually like kind of balanced. I feel like the same thing would happen with like the roster of video games. So I understand some of this guy was a little bit fair in some points, but a lot of it was like, hey, this is just more like a fun activity we need to replace all of these. I don't feel like the exact number of cuts that he did at the beginning. I would modify this challenge. This challenge was fun. I can see why he made the hard cuts, but I feel like I would slightly modify that challenge.
Fires with each other. It's actually a pretty interesting challenge, and I bet you'd all come up with something really wild. But that's it, another Smash roster in the books. If you enjoyed this episode and you're interested in what we do here on this channel, make sure that you give us a like and a follow. In case you haven't heard by now, this is the year of 100,000 subs. That's right, we're going to do it.
Congrats.
We are going to hit 100K by the end of the year, so help us make that happen, and make sure to click that subscribe button down there. And ring the bell and leave a comment down there. Those things help YouTube know to spread these videos around.
Leave a like? No, I refuse. You said so many bad things about some characters, and then you did some good things, by the way. I appreciate that. There was a bit of balance in there in my brain. I refuse to give this video a like. Not that it's of that important. I feel like the verdict is like most of the people gave it a like. I felt like a lot of it was fair, but there were some moments I was like, remove Yoshi? What is this extremely questionable decision? Anyways, that's been Thorgis Arcade video. Thank you for the recommendation. Go get this video a follow. I still gonna watch more videos from this person. They're awesome.